Good day everyone, I am Jaena Alora from BSc 1-7. So for today's video, I will discuss two topics which is the phrenology and the nature theory. So without further ado, let's start to the first topic which is the phrenology. Phrenology is came from the Greek words meaning phren, meaning mind, and logos, meaning knowledge. It is based on the belief that human behavior originated in the brain. So this was the major departure for earlier beliefs that focus on the four humors as the source of emotions. First is the sanguine or the blood. It is seated in the liver and associated with courage and love. Next is the chloric or the yellow bile. It is seated in the gallbladder and associated with anger and bad temper. Third is melancholic or the black bile, seated in the spleen and associated with depression, sadness, and irritability. And last is phlegmatic or the phlegm. It is seated in the brain and lungs and associated with calmness and lack of excitability. Theoretically and practically relocating responsibility for behavior from various organs to the brain represented a major step in the development of the scientific study of behavior and in the development of biological explanation of crime and criminality. So first, Mr. Franz Joseph Gall. Around 1800, Mr. Franz Joseph Gall, a German neuroanatomist and psychologist who pioneered study of the human brain as the source of mental faculties, developed the practice of phrenoscopy, a technique by which the infer behaviors and characteristic of, of external examination of the skull or the cranium. So according to Gall, a person's strength, weaknesses, morals, proclivities, character, and personalities could be determined by physical characteristic of his or her skull. So Gall mapped out the location of 27 brain organs on the human particular area of skull would indicate as strength or weakness in that particular area. For example, several areas of Gall's map of the skull were believed to correspond to that person's tendencies to engage in criminal or deviant acts. One area corresponds to the tendency to commit murder, and another area corresponds to the tendency to steal. Although it's not widely accepted in the Europe, the English elite and the other use Gall's ideas to justify the oppression of individuals whose skulls had bumps or depression in wrong areas. But it was widely accepted in America between 1820 and 1850. Although crude and somewhat ridiculous by today's standards, Gall's effort had significant impact on subsequent research that attempt to identify the brain as the origin of behavior. Although similar to physiognomy in that it tried to make inferences about character and behavior from outward characteristics. Cranioscopy attempted to correlate those outward physical characteristics to internal physical characteristics, which was a significant advance. So here's the basic tenets of Franz Joseph Gall's system. First is the brain is the organ of the mind. Second is the mind is composed of multiple distinct innate faculties. Third is because they are distinct, each faculty must have a separate seat or organ in the brain. Fourth is the size of an organ, other things being equal, is a measure of its power. Fifth is the shape of the brain is determined by development of of the various organ. And lastly is according to Y2000, as the skull take its shape from the brain, the surface of the skull can be read as an accurate index of psychological aptitude and tendencies. So one more thing or trivia about Mr. Franz Gall, he may properly be considered as the father of phrenology. Although Gall himself never used that term, and phrenology as we think of it was far removed from Gall's work on the brain and nervous system. So next is Mr. Johann Sporzem. Mr. Johann Sporzem physician and is a German physician and student of Gauss. Actually, he coined the term phrenology to replace cranioscopy. Spurzheim also expanded the map of the brain organs, developed a hierarchical system of the organs, and created a model phrenology bus that depicted the location of the brain organs. While the German scientists were focusing attention on the brain as an important determination of individual behavior, various other scholars were theorizing about the development of man as a biological organism, about the nature of social and political organization, and about the place of a man as an individual within those organizations. The synthesis of these ideas would significantly advance the progress of research related to biological perspective of behavior. So, this is the end of our first topic, which is the phrenology, and move forward here to the next topic, which is the nature theories. So, nature theories. It is asserted that the etiology of criminal behavior is biologically based in genetic inheritance, and that the structure of the function of people's brains and other psychological responses, and it is according to Coyne and Wright 2014. So it is still part of our biological, but in this topic, we deal or more focusing in the areas of intelligence of the criminality or criminal behavior. So in these two topic, the nature and the nurture theory, it is very debatable. So nature theory, they are saying those proponents of nature theory that our intelligence or our skill is practically inherent on us or minana na natin. And the person who have a low IQ and a low comprehension, it is the person that high tendency to commit a crime. On the other hand, the proponents of nature theory, it is practically focusing or relating criminality in the other environmental factor. When we say environmental factor, it could be physical or social and other cultural factors. So in nature theory, we believe that intelligence is not inherited, but largely it is the product of environment, a product of socialization and educational learnings. So low IQ scores do not cause crime, but may result from same environmental factors. So they are focusing in environmental factors as the primary determinants of criminal behavior. And again, in nature theory, to emphasize it, we believe that intelligence is greatly an influencing factor to criminal behavior and say that intelligence is the product. So here are some proponents of nature theory. First is Mr. Henry Goddard. In his studies in 1920, that many institutionalized people were that he considered feeble-minded, and concluded that at least half of juvenile delinquents were mentally defective, and it is according to Segel et al. 2007. So, the proponents of Mr. Henry Goddard, he says that if you are low IQ, parang hindi ka na kailangan. Kailangan nang alisin yung mga low IQ or yung mga bobo. And yung ititira na lang is yung mga matatalino. So, Mr. Henry Goddard ay mapanakit. So, next proponents from William Haley and Augusta Bronner. William Haley and Augusta Bronner tested a group of delinquents in Chicago and Boston, and they found that 37% were subnormal in intelligence. And they concluded that delinquent boys were 5 to 10 times more likely to be mentally deficient than delinquent boys. Thus, many criminologists agreed with the predisposition of substandard individuals toward delinquency. And and it's, it and it is also according to CJ et al. 27. While it is acknowledged that a range of personal and environmental factors are likely to influence offending behavior. For example, the gender, age, peer support, yung poverty, education, ethnicism, low impulse control, empathy, psychological well-being, personality, and many more. The link between low levels of IQ and criminal involvement continues to receive considerable attention. And it is according to Diaz Belena Sixbagwanan in 1994, and Jolly Life and Farrington in 2004. So, before I end this topic and this discussion, I will give an quotation by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Behavior is the mirror in which everyone shows their image. And for me, it was true. And here's some RRL that will help you. And yan, kung may gusto pa po kayong malaman and kulang yung topic na naibigay ko and gusto nyo pa po mag-search about this topic, you can search the YouTube channel of Mr. Darlito Bernard Delizo, and alam kong matutulungan kayo nan. So that's all. Thank you po. I hope you learn a lot from me.